Hey everybody, welcome to the Leader Lab. This is Leadership Shorts, quick thoughts to help you level up your leadership. My name is Chad Wright. I'm the founder of Forward Partners. I am joined by my partner in podcasting, Emily Grace Deal. Emily Grace Deal, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about a question that someone submitted. They said, my team is scared to own mistakes. Instead, they cover them up and causes more damage. How do I create an environment where we can talk about mistakes openly?
That's actually a really good one. Often what I see is leaders will create an environment where mistakes are not talked about, where hey, we can't own it. It's dangerous to own it. They don't do it intentionally, I don't think. I think they very accidentally create this. And then eventually that environment starts to cause problems because as humans, how do we learn? We learn by screwing things up. When we're a kid, we learn how to walk by trying it and falling enough times and eventually going, you know what? I don't want to fall anymore. I'm gonna figure this out, you know? And so if we learn by making mistakes and then talking about them, then if we shut off the ability to talk about mistakes, we're shutting off the ability to learn.
Well, and to grow and do things in a better or different way,
Absolutely.
too. Because if you're always just doing things perfect, then you're probably not changing enough to do things better. Yeah.
And so the question is, how do we unintentionally create this environment as leaders? And it goes to the first point, which is to be steady. So when someone brings you a mistake, your goal as a leader should be steadiness. We're not going up here and taking their face off because they brought us a mistake.
You did what?
What kind of moron would do that? Like, we're not doing that. We're also not collapsing in a pool of tears and going, the world is over. You made a mistake.
You made a mistake and now everything's broken.
Yes, we're not going down there. We are steady. We are right down the line. We are, okay, let's figure this out. And so I think that's the first piece because what I see often, I don't really see the collapsing as much as I see the blowing up. I see leaders who they're not in the healthy ranges. They're in the average or unhealthy. They're scared. They're stressed. They're in the middle of their own things. Mistake comes, they blow up. That person ain't bringing us mistakes anymore, right? Like there's no incentive there.
Yeah.
If you know you're going to get smacked, why are you going to keep going and talking to them?
Well, and I think it goes to like the future of it too. Like mistakes are going to happen and they're going to bring them to you. And the first time you react is going to set a precedent for how that's going to change in the future. I think about my 4-year-olds. Yeah. I collect vintage like plates and stuff, and I use them every day because I don't want them to just sit on a shelf. So we use them, but one day he broke one of them. Yeah. And my first instinct was, oh my gosh, that was one of my favorites. It had the cute little green outlines on it. Like that was important to me. Yeah. And then I was like, what's more important in this situation? That he learns that it's okay to make a mistake, that an accident can happen and that we can fix it.
And to own it, to not lie about it.
Okay, how do we clean it up? Okay, how do we clean up this plate safely with a 4-year-old that's, glass, but that's different. But how do we fix this? How do we clean this up in a way? And that my reaction to that is a big piece of it. Because what's going to happen next time that happens? Is he going to come to me and we're going to be able to have a conversation about it and he's going to be able to own it? Or is he going to be like, oh no, last time she freaked out. Right. Yes. Somebody else broke that plate.
And again, this goes back to my theory that almost everything in leadership goes back to marriage and parenting. This is the parenting aspect. This is you bring me a mistake. My goal is steadiness so that you will still bring me mistakes done in the future.
That calm reaction.
Yeah, so being steady. Yeah. And the other is changing our mindset and not seeing just the mistake. That mistake walks in the door, it might as well be a neon sign, right? But seeing it as an opportunity to learn. And so that's why we have what we call the learning framework. So how can we achieve steadiness? First, we be healthy as we can be, to be steady, but then say, okay, here's a framework we're going to use to process mistakes so it's consistent. So that way when you're bringing a problem to me, I'm going to handle it the same way that a leader, 3 or 4 rungs down on the org chart, they're going to handle it the exact same way. When we create that consistency as an organization, it's more likely to be a conversation. And so we have what we call the learning framework. The first piece of this is to be able to say and hold with an open hand, here's the mistake I made. Yeah. Here's what I screwed up.
That's the hard part.
That is the hard part. But if we can start there, if we can create this environment where it is okay, now we can say, okay, here's the mistake I made. And the second piece, and I think this is so important, here's what I was thinking at the time.
Yeah.
that helps us get underneath what created this mistake, right? What was it?
And it's not just like, oh, I know that person did that because they were just being stupid, or they were lazy and didn't take the time to do it.
Which is not always accurate, right?
Right. And that, I mean, because the lazy perspective, the seed of that can literally just be, well, what else were they handling? Yeah. What else was their focus on?
Yeah. And you'll find often it was, well, I wasn't really thinking about it. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's good to know, actually. Because the next piece is, here's what I learned. What did we learn from this mistake? Well, we learned we need to think about it more. We need to be more intentional. We need to focus. And then the last piece, what are the consequences of this? Because I think it can feel, when we just start with these first three, they're kind of open-handed, right? Here's the mistake I made. Here's what I was thinking. Here's what I learned. That can feel a little light, like we're never going to hold people accountable. And that's not what we're saying. We're saying every mistake is absolutely a chance to learn, to grow the organization. But sometimes there are consequences.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about, what are the consequences of the mistake? What are the consequences this time? What's it going to be if we repeat this mistake? If we look up and we've done the same thing that we've learned from 5 times.
We aren't actually using
We're not actually learning.
We're not learning. We're not growing here. Yeah.
And again, if learning and growth is the goal, then we have to understand what consequences and accountability looks like.
Yeah.
And so I think that just use that framework. But then part of that, here's the mistake I made. How do we do that? Because what you said, oh man, that's the hard part. It is, right? It's this next piece, which is to be vulnerable as a leader.
Yeah.
If we can publicly own mistakes and say, hey, I screwed up. I really messed this up.
Yeah.
And again, use the same framework on ourselves. It shows them that it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah, we all do. And that's the same thing. I break plates too. Yeah. And August is not the only one breaking plates. Yeah. So we're able to be like, hey, I made a mistake and that's okay. Or if my reaction is to yell at him, be like, okay, that was a mistake.
100%.
And own any of that too. So,
And so I think this framework, if we can be vulnerable as leaders and really celebrate the learning aspect of it, take that mindset shift that we are all about learning. And guess what? That involves screwing up sometimes.
Yep.
And really focus on that. So leaders, if you have one of those environments where people are covering up mistakes, they're not owning them, you don't feel like y'all are growing and learning, embrace this. Start by being steady. Show up as healthy. That's the hard part. Show up as healthy so you can be steady. Then use this framework. Here's the mistake I made. Here's what I was thinking at the time. Here's what I learned. And now what are the consequences? And if we can communicate about that openly, we are more likely to own mistakes, to actually learn and actually move forward and grow as an organization. This can become highly practical and really unlock some amazing new levels. It can transform your organization if you can learn how to do this. But ultimately, it starts with you. It starts with your health and your steadiness. All right, I love this idea of a learning framework. This is something we've used, and we've just seen it transform organizations. I absolutely love this conversation.
Definitely.
All right, if people want to send in their own questions, where do they send that to?
lab@forwardpartners.net.
lab@forwardpartners.net. If they want to find content just like this, totally free on the socials, where do they find it?
@forwardpartner.
@forwardpartner. Emily, thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Danny, thank you for producing. Wilco Workspaces, thank you for hosting us here and partnering with us. We will see you right here next time in the Leader Lab for Leadership Shorts.